Is this working?
Yes.
Whoa! Okay, we're on. It's all yours now. It's up to you. I'm moving to a place where I can actually see you. If I fall off, you've got to catch it. And of course, no one's got any questions. I'll go home right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You used two words that I
Can
found
we
interesting.
change the lights a bit? Yeah.
More light on. Used two words prominently. One was doubt, and the other was credit.
Doubt and
Credit. Use the word credit.
credit.
You did.
C-R-E-D-I-T.
Right. They kind of go together. It was in passing, but it was there. You want to use this one? Like this? Okay. And then you start off saying you were agnostic or atheist?
Agnostic.
Agnostic. Of course, agnosticism is doubt.
Agnosticism is the honesty and integrity to say that you don't know something that cannot be known.
Rationally. Well, anyways.
But yes, it involves doubt and it involves valuing doubt.
And then in your book, you're crediting Muhammad because of his doubt.
Absolutely. And there are many instances, not many, but there's several instances in Muhammad's life where the doubt was evident. And in fact, one, which I know you might be mentioning, the Satanic Verses, where in fact he had the courage to publicly say, I was wrong, and this is right, knowing what the consequences would be, knowing that the harassment of him would double and triple once he'd done that.
You know, what I'm going here, necessarily Christians and Muslims credit the, say, faith claims of Judaism. Necessarily. Whereas necessarily Judaism has to reject the faith claims of Christianity and Muslim and Islam. Fair enough?
I guess so. I mean, everyone seems to think that they know the truth. You know, which always comes with a capital T, you know, like the big true capitals or something.
We have a responsibility to go to the religion to which we're called. Would you say that's fair? We have a responsibility to respond to the religion to which we're called. Is that fair enough?
It depends who's talking the religion.
Depends on who's talking.
Who's talking, yes. I mean, you know, we think of Islam, for instance, inside the West, we tend to think of Islam as this huge monolith. In fact, you've got 1.5 billion people worldwide, and you could almost say there's as many Islamists as there are Muslims. Certainly that's so for Judaism. If I speak as a Jew, I know I don't speak. Are there any other Jews here? One. Yes! Where do you put the others? Jews should be, and Christians, and atheists, and Hindus, and agnostics, and Buddhists, all of them. But I mean, I don't speak for the whole of Judaism. Nobody here, well, anybody here, can claim to speak for the whole of Islam, but if they do, then I'm not going to believe it. I think anybody here, anybody else here, people who they believe. The Pope claims to speak of all Christianity, and not even most Catholics believe it. So, religion is a human construct. In a sense, even God, the concept of God is a human construct. And we each construct it in our own way, and according to values that we treasure. And I think it's when you insist on only a single interpretation, it betrays actually, it's certainly a matter of conviction, and it's certainly a matter of great certainty. There's no faith there. There's no need for faith. There's no need for Kierkegaard's leap of faith. There's no real, I mean, faith goes hand in hand with doubt. I know that's kind of a shocking statement. But let's talk about, for instance, I can give you an example. I have faith, this is what I'm going to say next month, that peace in the Middle East is possible despite the overwhelming, ever-accumulating massive evidence to the contrary. I'm not convinced of this, obviously. I don't even believe it. I can only have faith in it, which just means that I commit myself to the idea of it. Because to not do so is to give in to despair. And that I refuse to do. Because once we give in to despair, it becomes self-fulfilling. This, to my mind, is faith. And I honestly don't care whether it's religious or secular, whether God is involved. Personally, I don't care whether God is involved or not. Your concept of God, my concept of whatever divine existence, or whatever you want to call it, might or might not be. It's what we make of it. We're the ones who are responsible here. And to shove it all off on God, I think, is an evasion of responsibility. Where did I get myself to there? What did you ask?
Yeah, you went where I was going to go.
Okay.
What was the agnosticism and evasion of responsibility?
Yeah. I'm a thought.
Not agnosticism and evasion of responsibility.
Oh, it's not agnosticism? No, I think it's claiming responsibility, it's claiming integrity. Faith is difficult and it's stubborn. And if you're capable of it, that's wonderful, but don't confuse it. Don't confuse conviction and faith. Remember that there are many, many truths. And where they converge is perhaps where the three major monotheisms converge. I mean, those basic rules fall there in the Ten Commandments and so on. And, they all converge here. Sorry, what? Okay.
Hi, Mr. Hazleton. I read both your books recently, and I want to take the opportunity to give you short, maybe criticism or analysis of what I see in it. But before I go there, what this gentleman deciphered or revealed about your agnosticism, I respect that. I myself came from a left, but I'm a person of faith. And I can tell your interpretation of the messenger of God is very wrong, that he was doubtful.
I'm not hearing what you're saying.
I said, I'm saying your interpretation as an agnostic, to take that the prophet had doubt, rather the messenger of God had doubt about God, is very mistaken, because you do not understand the experience of faith.
Okay, let's put it like this. In your opinion, I'm mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
But to say that I'm mistaken in some absolute sense determined by who or what is very, very hard.
No, at least, well, let me just say, because I think it was more his burden. No, I'm not going to go into that, because you're seeing it from your philosophical point of view. You can see it, but I'm going to go about the book. Your two books. First of all, you analyze there's this thing going on. First of all, let me say I appreciate your books, because it was good for me, because it opened the way for me to understand the life of the prophet the way I wanted it, because a lot of the time the Muslims don't really want to talk about it in such frank ways, and it opened the way for me to find the rest of the story. I don't think I really told the whole story, but yeah, at least open some, but I think there are a lot of misconceptions in there, because you're looking at it from your point of view as a feminist and as an agnostic. And those things create certain biases in your point of view of the story that you see. And first of all, in the first book, you see the prophet through Aisha, who's really considered one of the mothers in Islam.
Wait, which one are we talking about here?
I'm saying in the first book, about the first one after the prophet, about
Elijah doesn't turn up and after the prophet, does he? Elijah's not an after the prophet. He's in Jezebel. You talk about the prophet Elijah?
No. I'm talking about the messenger of Islam. In your book, in the second book, in the two books that you wrote, you write about the prophet of Islam through the point of view of Aisha.
Aisha.
Yeah.
She who speaks a lot.
Yeah. You see it through her point of view as a feminist. So you don't really see the prophet. You see the prophet through her. And you reveal her to be a materialist, that she was, who raised a civil war in Islam. Right.
Well,
let me finish my criticism, because I don't have that much time to get to another point. And in that, you reveal her to be an instigator and a material, and yet you excuse all her faults, because you're a feminist and you want to believe in this female.
Okay, let me stop you here. I find it very interesting. Wait. Of the prophet, the subtitle is.
This is not a question.
The subtitle is.
Let me finish with the Let me
I thought
finish,
people wanted to
because
talk.
you're extending it. Also, there is this campaign on Muslims to castigate them as terrorists, and you castigate the experience of the Prophet Muhammad as a terror experience.
Oh, that's bullshit.
Extending the whole
That's
experience
ridiculous.
of Muslims being terrorists, not the whole experience of Islam is a terrorist. This is what you're
That is absolutely ridiculous. How you manage to read that into anything I've written, I have absolutely no idea.
Repeat the word terror in regard to the experience of the Prophet 10 times over.
Have you never been terrified?
All right? And I tell you, your Mossad will be defeated. And there's
My Mossad, thank you.
Not a question. Now let me tell
Thank
you
you.
the word that you raised in your book. Let me say the word. I want to ask you about the question. Now here's the question. You raised this word, miscegenation. Right? Miscegenation, here's the word. It's the mixing of different racial groups through marriage, cohabitation, sexual, etc.
Yeah, wonderful. Let's do it.
Yeah. The question is, do you think the Zionist regime is going to accept this?
Okay, we're ready for another question. So if any of you guys...
Okay, let me just say, after the Prophet was very interesting in response to that, because the subtitle is, okay, I'll see you there. The subtitle is The Epic Story of the Shia-Sunni Split in Islam. And there are two major female characters in it. One, of course, is Aisha, who was the youngest of the late life wives of the Prophet, and the other is Fatima, who was his daughter. And Fatima became a kind of female, sacred, iconic figure of Shia, and Aisha, in a way, more than Khadija, because Khadija died before Muhammad became a prophet. She didn't live to tell her story. Aisha lived, way outlived Muhammad, and told the story many, many times. So what was interesting was that the criticism from Shia when they read this book was almost entirely about the way I've written about Fatima. That I've been too hard on Fatima and too nice to Aisha. Need I tell you what the criticism was from Sunnis who read this book? Again, focused entirely on the women. That I've been far too hard on Aisha and far too nice to Fatima. So, with those responses in mind, I feel fairly secure that I sort of managed to keep a pretty good balance. Okay, another question.
So I actually don't have a question, I just have a comment, and I just want to say, as a Muslim who's really interested in kind of interfaith dialogue, I really appreciate that you took the time and the effort to write this book and to bring your own understanding of everything, because I think that a second look is actually really helpful for Muslims to see other perspectives as well as a psychological approach. I think is really fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I know, as I say, I'm aware that taking this kind of psychological approach is difficult for many more conservative Muslims. It's a very different way of looking at the problem, and that takes some getting used to, or not. And in fact, I don't know if anyone here is going to ask me about the title. It usually does come up. How can I call it the first Muslim when the Islamic tradition has it the first Muslim was Abraham or Adam, depending on who it is you're citing. But as I said in that part I read, Muhammad is told 3 times in the Quran too. He is told, say, I am the first Muslim. And there have been many, many quibbles about that, everyone arguing. A lot of people arguing about the word first, saying awal does not mean first, it means foremost. Okay. Sounds like saying to me. But, which is also, it's just, it's, and since awal is one of the 99 names of God, and that clearly means first, comes before last, it seems to be clear that that does mean first. Nobody quibbles about the word Muslim, which is in fact not Muslim with a capital M, it's called no capitals in Arabic, but he who submits to right. So it can be argued about whether my use of a capital M for that Muslim, but nobody ever argues about that. So I don't know. But in any case, I was perfectly aware that by using this title, I would be inviting this disagreement. And partly that title is, I think, a kind of fair warning. If you are extremely attached to, as a matter of a dogma, a principle, to the idea of Adam or Abraham as the first Muslim, you don't want to read this book. It's okay. It's fine. Don't read it, right? If you want to look more from a historical point of view, if you want to take that step to the side, outside, and look at where you are, which is a very difficult thing to do, I know, but sometimes a very rewarding thing to do, then please go on in, read this book. So that choice of title is also quite deliberately, not to insult, but a deliberate statement that it is not about to deceive. It was fascinating. I mean, it's just, it's great. By the way, I've gotten into quite a bit of trouble for stuff I've written about. I found Jewish things. Yeah.
So in the beginning, you talked about Prophet Muhammad's influence on the socio-political landscape of the 21st century. So I was wondering if you could go into a little more detail about what was it specifically that he did in the 7th century that is still resonating today.
Oh, yeah. I think all of the three great monotheisms were rooted in something very, very similar, and that is, should still be, and ideally still is, at its best still is, the desire, the search, the quest for social and economic justice. If you look at early Judaism, you'll see that it arose out of protest against corruption of kings. Because early Christianity, it arose out of protest against the corruption of occupation, which Reza Aslan describes pretty well in his new book coming out in July. Roman occupation and collaboration with the occupation. If you look at early Islam, you'll see that it arose out of protest against the oligarchy, against the corrupt small group of people ruling Mecca and profiting from both trade and piety, to the detriment of the 99%, basically. These were all radical movements of the people against corrupt rule. And that's how they spread. In fact, the early followers of Muhammad were very, very similar to the early followers of Jesus. They even called, in one of the early histories, they called that bunch of nobodies, right? Second, third, fourth sons, not the ones who are going to inherit, right? Slaves, freedmen, freed slaves, women. Exactly the same people who were following Jesus in the early days. This was a message that resonated in a time of great inequity. Mecca, I think it's hard to grasp in the United States in the 21st century, but Mecca in the early 7th century was not some isolated backwater, some isolated desert backwater like everyone seems to imagine. Or some sort of Hollywood set like is shown in, what is it, that Saudi movie, The Message, from that. It's incredibly orientalist, that movie, by the way. It has sand dunes all around. Lots and lots of camels. Mecca was a sophisticated center of both trade and pilgrimage. The Kaaba was there before Muhammad, and the Kaaba was the shrine to Allah, the High One, the God, as the Uber God, the Super God. And around him, literally around him, outside the Kaaba, were arrayed all the sort of associate gods, the minor gods of the tribes, the totems and so on. Who made these stones throughout the desert, being adopted by one tribe or another as their totem. And these you could touch, you could sacrifice to, pray to, and so on. They were real compared to this existence. Things is in itself misleading. This concept of this remote high God, Allah, which of course the same root as Elohim, Hebrew, the high one. So tribes came from all over Arabia to up there. Guess what happened? Did anyone make much of them? Recently? So you know, you pay. You pay for the ramp, the clothing, you pay for the lodging, you pay for the food, you pay for the right to enter, you pay for the right to tent, for the right to feed the camels, food for the camels, the water for the camels, the priest to make the offering for this, the one to make the sacrifice. So in other words, the people who run it were making a huge profit out of it, which is not so great today. At the same time, Mecca was also a huge center of trade. Twice a year, it sent caravans, yes, camel caravans, but 2,000 strong. One south to Vienna and one north to Damascus. These were organized as cartels, as trade cartels, with shares. Going to everybody had shares in them. And these were major, major trading ventures. And it took a month to get a camel caravan from Mecca to Damascus. So when you got to Damascus, you didn't just do it kind of a pre-aviation version of a touch and go at Damascus airport to turn around and come straight back. You did as is still done today in the Middle East. You settled in, you talk, you give hospitality, you receive hospitality, you become part of the place. Even before Muhammad, Meccan traders owned farms in Palestine and mansions in Damascus and date orchards in Iraq and so on and so on. They were part and parcel of the places that they traded with. That's what they trade. Anyone that looks at the foreign coverage of the Wall Street Journal nowadays, it has some of the best foreign coverage available. Why? Anybody here doing economics? I mean, if you trade, you kind of know who you're trading with. Quite simple. That's what it comes down to. A badly informed trader is a lousy trader. The only way you do is if you're well informed. Muhammad worked on those caravans. Muhammad spent a month at a time, at least a month at a time in Damascus. He heard the stories of the Hebrew Bible from preachers there and rabbis there. He heard the stories of the Christian Bible from preachers there, monks there, and so on and so on. This was a man who, whether he could read or not, to my mind, is completely irrelevant. I don't see what difference it makes. This was a man who was well informed. And it's amazing, I mean, everything that they learned in foreign places, they would bring back to Mecca. Mecca was a well-informed city. You know, we imagine because the vast majority of people couldn't read or write, that they had to, they were illiterate. We, in our 21st century arrogance, think of illiteracy as ignorance. Illiteracy equals ignorance. It does not. It simply means that you don't have reading or writing ability. No. So I'm not quite sure how I get on. How did I get onto that horse?
Asking what he did back then that
So yeah, what you had was immense profits. The ruling elite of the Quraysh, which was his own tribe. He was born really on the margins of it. You'll see if you get to read the book. And you had what is a huge phenomenon now in the late 20th and early 21st century, especially in years of drought. Peasants, veteran, would come flocking into the city, right? Because there was nothing to sustain their flocks. And there they would end up in the role basically of indentured servants. Or even worse, begging on the streets and so on. And there was this huge inequity, this huge inequality of rich and poor majority. And Muhammad could see this. You could see this because he was the outsider. Because he grew up the first 5 years of his life with a Bedouin family. Because he was never really accepted as one of them until much later when he began to be a trusted trade representative. He was an insider with outsider eyes, which is an incredibly creative and productive stance. A very painful one too, a very uncomfortable one. See that way is very uncomfortable. But I'm pretty sure he saw that way before the first revelation. This wasn't just chance what happened to him in this book. He was ready. Yeah.
So I have two questions. The first is, what challenges have you personally faced within your Jewish identity as somebody who's heavily engaged engaged studying the life of the Prophet Muhammad and learning a lot about Islam, and also what challenges we face coming into Muslim communities and talking about your findings and how do you feel you go through these experiences and what have you observed. And then also, commonly today, you often hear rhetoric that, or different media circles, whatever, that Islam, religion is often associated with violence, and it's very popular to think of religion and violence being one the same. And what, in your experience, or what teachings from Muhammad's life do you feel are the answer to that rhetoric?
Okay, 4 questions. See if I can even remember. Challenges to my own Jewish faith, I don't have to worry. I'm not a person of faith. I really am a person. I'm not religious. I am secular. I am Jewish by birth. I am Jewish by culture. I am Jewish by creation. I am Jewish by identity. There is a mezuzah on the front door of my houseboat. There's no prayer inside it, because I'm not going to pay some rabbi to mutter over it and put the prayer inside. I don't need the prayer. But the mezuzah is there as a sign of identity. It says, this house belongs to a Jew, me. Right? And I wouldn't dream of living anywhere without having a mezuzah on the door. And this is a matter of tradition, it's a matter of identity, it's a matter of loyalty to who I am, and loyalty to my parents who are both dead. And by the way, every year on the anniversary of their deaths, I light the upper side candles, the Yiddish word, time of year, the memorial candle, it's 25-hour candle, you need an extra hour inside, just to get the safe side, 24 hours. And I wouldn't dream of any anniversary one of their deaths go by without lighting that candle, because it's what they would have wanted, which is kind of ridiculous, since they're not here to care whether I do what they would have wanted or not. So I'm doing it for me. This is a matter of identity, so quiet. And no way am I going to go against that. It doesn't matter what I believe about the people of Bible. It doesn't matter what I believe about the rabbis. It doesn't matter whether I certainly don't identify with every Jew in the world. In fact, you don't really want to hear what I would like to see happen to all the settlers in the West Bank. But it's, to the Israeli government. It's, but it's painful. The actions of the Israeli government are all the more painful to me because I am Jewish, because I can't avoid the fact that they're Jewish and I'm Jewish, and because it's the only non-Jewish state in the world. It does affect me, and I can't break that, which is why it's all the more painful. So, what was the second question? How Muslims react? How Muslims react?
Just in your experience, what are your experiences kind of engaging, talking about the prophets and the prophets?
Okay. This is part of an ongoing thing with me. So basically, I've always been interested in religion and politics. I mean, when I worked as a journalist, I sort of veered more towards the Middle East report. I was veered more towards, which is why I could see what was happening in the West Bank settlers earlier than most people. I understood what was driving this sort of messianic nonsense. But it fascinates me. Most people think of religion here and politics there. In fact, there's this vast overlap and very, very volatile. I mean, who, as a writer, as a political writer, would not be attracted to one of the most volatile fields in all of human history, the overlap of religion and politics, especially in the Middle East, where the two are intertwined more deeply and more inextricably than anywhere else in the world, I think, and for longer. So to me, this all makes perfect sense. It's not a matter of, it's like asking, why do I write? Why do I ask questions? Why do I think? That's just the way I operate, the way I interact with the world, the way I try and make sense of it. Maybe see a way forward. Again, how Muslims react to the book depends who you're talking to. I mean, obviously there are some who sort of say, and in fact, a 5-7 was given to this effect by one local imam who said she is leading us into error. Which kind of seems to give you a little bit too much credit. And, and she's very open. But I think, you know, in my experience, the Muslim community in this country has been incredibly, wonderfully open-minded and generous and open-hearted. Because I know that there are various points in the book that do go counter to the traditional ways of thinking about Muhammad. That the fact that I have included and explored the whole issue of the satanic verses, which most people, as I say throughout, I haven't done at all. The fact that I do go into what happened between him and the Jewish tribes in Medina, which is very painful for me, let alone for many Muslims. The fact that I refused to look away, that I didn't edit his life, which I think I realized I could have done, but then I don't think that does any justice. It does no justice to the life, and it shows, to my mind, no respect for the integrity of your subject. And as I say, I wanted to give them recording the integrity of reality, the integrity of a full life lived in all its complexity, which, you know, as Samir said at the beginning, you know, the image is that he is the perfect man, and I do not believe in perfection. I would much rather have humanness than perfection. To my mind, one of the phrases that's used often in the Quran is judgment belongs to God alone. Well, to my mind, perfection belongs to God alone. Any more? Oh, what about all the women? I mean, what woman is even asking questions?
Sorry, but we actually don't have enough time. But
No, they're not going to throw us out yet. They're not going to throw us out yet.
so if you guys have any more questions, we're gonna end right here.
I can't believe it. Come on. That's all. Wake up, guys.
But we can answer more questions outside. We just have to get out the hall.
Okay. Well, my basic principle is you don't go to the fully well.
Give us a hug. So thank you, and if everyone can help me give a round of applause.